Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 27 of the Open Mic. So today we've got, I thought that, we've done these trial readings here the last week, and it really revolved around several people, but one of the main ones was Mark Wiegert and his testimony, and if you can call it that. He was a very combative witness, in various other things that he said that it just blew me away. And I know, Alice is here, and Susan, I think, is trying to get on, but everybody that was involved, we were just like, wow. We had to actually stop a couple of times. It's going to be a pretty good blooper reel for Zoe, because I kept recording and we got pretty bad. But anyway, before we get started, I appreciate everyone, coming and being a part of today's open mic. Please, anyone that's out there, hopefully one of our mods here can drop a link to the Discord. If you want to come in and chat, please do. We'd love to have you. Get your thoughts. Our only real requirements is to be civil, be straight, be nice. We can talk about anything as long as we can talk. If we get nasty, then it takes away from the subject and we go completely somewhere else. So anyway, let's let everybody say hi. Al, you guys just go in a row there, and I don't have to call your name to say hi, and let's get this going.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming to the chat.
Hey everyone.
Well, hello, checking convictions here. Hey everybody, how you doing?
Becca, say hello.
Hello.
Hey Becca, thanks for coming. There's Susan. I'm not sure if she can speak or not. I don't know if she's on her phone, but can you talk, Susan? Well, maybe not. Sammy?
Hi there. How y'all doing?
There we go. Okay. To get us going here, I'm going to, this is going to be 3 parts. Hopefully we have time to get all 3 parts in, because I know the conversations are probably going to go a little bit left, right, and center, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But I basically have got 3 things lined up. The first part is going through day 4, 5, and 6, and they're just excerpts from Wiegert's testimony and some of the things that he said that, and I didn't capture all of them. I didn't even try, because there were so many things that he said that just absolutely drove me crazy. I know it did Alice. She was really perturbed because she was doing his voice, or his part. But I tried to capture a few things that really irritated me, and about him being really a really combative and witness. You could completely tell when he was talking to Fallon. Fallon's doing his direct and his redirect, recross, whatever. The difference between him and then when Edelston was trying to get illicit information from him, he would add these little tidbits of things, like he'd get asked a question like, well, did you find fingerprints or DNA or whatever? No, but I didn't expect to. I didn't ask if he expected to, and it really irritated me that Edelston would not instruct or ask the judge to instruct him to stop doing that, because it altered his answers and it left that with the jury, and it should have been stopped, in my opinion. So anyway, let me pull this up here and then we'll get going. PDF files. Okay. So what we're looking at here is this is day 4, and I'm going to read just some of the excerpts to just to get through it. And day 4, this part here is Fallon is on direct with Wiegert, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Some of his answers, these questions and answers with Fallon. So this question. All right. And prior to this is pretty late in day 4. This is where Wiegert comes in. He testifies at the end of day 4, all of day 5, and the early morning of day 6. So he's in 3 different parts. Yeah, quite a bit. Now in day 5, I will say that they did play these coercion confession tapes to the jury, at least part of them. They stopped it. Of course, they didn't hear it all, but a good chunk of them they did. So anyway, he says, starting at line 21 there, and everything that I'm doing is linked in the description. So if you want to go pull it up and look at it yourself, that's fine too. Can everybody see that okay? Is it zoomed in enough? Alice, Sammy, everybody see that okay?
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks good.
Okay. Question. All right. And let's set that aside for a moment. And in the time we have this afternoon, I'd like to focus your attention on a particular part of your investigation in this case. All right. Specifically, that is with respect to your interview with, in context with a young woman by the name of Kayla Avery. All right. Specifically, directing your attention to February 20, 2006. On that particular day, did you have any opportunity to interview Kayla? Now, I want to preface this right now. This is nothing from my standpoint or anyone at Foul Play standpoint against Kayla at all. But I think it is interesting that this is the beginning testimony here. You got to keep that in mind. Everything prior to this was them talking about going into the investigation, how big it was. It wasn't anything about Brandon or anyone else. They're talking about all this other stuff surrounding the investigation. So the first thing that Fallon does is introduce Kayla. I found that very interesting. Why wouldn't he specifically go into things against Brendan? Anyway, moving on. Interview with interview Kayla. Answer: I did. Myself, along with a female detective at our department by the name of Wendy Baldwin, had went to the Avery property, which would be the Earl and Candy Avery property, to interview Kayla. I want to also mention this. In this time frame, they had already been, this is February 20th, he says, they had already been there at least 2 other times to talk to Kayla and Marie. That's documented. I'm not making that up. Anyway, to interview Kayla. Line 13. Our purpose for going there was because we had some information from another person which we had interviewed. That Kayla had information about Stephen Avery. Our purpose for going there was to interview Kayla in reference to Steve Avery. Question. All right. And at some point during that interview, did the discussion change focus from Stephen Avery to Brendan Dassey? Answer: yes. The interview started out about Stephen Avery and Kayla, and was talking about her relationship with Stephen Avery. And just about at the end of that interview, Kayla, out of the blue, basically came out and told us that she had a cousin by the name of Brendan, and that Brendan was, quote, acting up lately. So we asked Kayla what she meant by Brendan acting up lately. At that point, Kayla told us that Brendan would just stare into space and start crying, basically uncontrollably. She also told us that Brendan had lost approximately what she estimated to be about 40 pounds. Question. Now, based on this information, what did you decide to do? Answer. Well, after looking at that information and reviewing other interviews that we had done, we decided that we needed to talk to Brendan again. Question. And did you talk to him? Answer. We did, yes. Question. When did you talk to Brendan again? Answer. Myself and Agent Fassbender interviewed Brendan on February 27 of 2006. Question. All right. Now, before we get into the details of that, I have a few more questions relative to Kayla Avery. On this December 20, 2000 interview of Kayla, who was present? It says December 20. That's not correct. That should be February 20. Answer. It had actually been February. Okay, he corrected it. Okay, he corrected it there. Okay. Kayla was present. There was 2 of us investigators, myself and Wendy Baldwin, Kayla, her mother, Candy, and her father, Earl. Question. All right. And did there come a time where you re-interviewed Kayla? Answer. We did. Shortly after Brendan was arrested, actually, we interviewed Kayla again, and that would have been March 7 of 2006. Question. All right. And what was the reason for in visiting or re-interviewing Kayla? Answer. Well, I take you back a little bit. Shortly after Brendan was arrested, and I believe that would have been on like February 28th, we had received a call from the Michigan School District Two of the counselors at the Miscott School District, after hearing that Brendan had been arrested, had called and reported that there may have some information in reference to Teresa Halbach homicide. Question, all right. And as such, did you then respond to the school and interview the counselors? Answer, we did. And myself, again, and Agent Fassbender went to the school the following day. Right away in the morning, there we met with, two counselors, Ms. Brandt, I believe it was, or Ms. Bumgarner. Question, all right. And did you interview them? Answer, we did. Question, after interviewing them, where did you go next? Answer, well, after getting that information, we thought we needed to go back and talk to Kayla again. Question, all right. Did you in fact go back and re-interview Kayla? Answer, we did. We actually, after interviewing the two counselors, we made phone contact with Kayla's mother and informed her that we had been at the school and we needed to talk to Kayla again. And we actually set up an appointment with Kayla's mother. Kayla's mother, Candy, invited us to her residence. So we waited for Kayla to come home from school. And then we went over to the Avery residence and again interviewed Kayla in the presence of her mother, again, and her father. Question, all right. Was her mother present for the entire conversation? Answer, her mother was. Candy Avery was present for the entire conversation. Her father, Earl, was in and out. Question, all right. During that conversation with Kayla Avery, did you discuss with her the report that Brendan Dassey had told her he'd seen body parts in a fire behind Stephen's garage? Answer, we did, yes. Question, and what did she say about that? Answer, well, Kayla came out and told us quite a few things at that point. Basically, she first broke down crying and indicated to us that she had learned from her cousin Brendan that she had learned this about in December around the time there was a birthday party that they were both at Kayla's house, and that Brendan had told Kayla that he had went to get the mail and went over to Stephen's residence and went into the residence and observed Teresa Halbach pinned up in Stephen Avery's bedroom. She went on to tell us a couple other things. She told us that Brendan had told her that after he saw Teresa pinned up in the bedroom, that he exited the residence, and while leaving Stephen's residence, he heard screaming coming from Stephen Avery's residence. Kayla went on to tell us how she had mentioned Brendan being out at the fire on Halloween night, and she also told us that her mother had seen the fire on Halloween night. Kayla went on to tell us how Brendan described seeing body parts later that day or that evening in the fire behind Stephen Avery's residence. Question. Now, during the questioning, Kayla, earlier this week, a statement exhibit number 163 was shown to her. Are you familiar with that? Answer, yeah, I am, yes. Question. All right. Was that statement generated by her? Answer, that's correct. Kayla wrote out that statement on her own. Question. All right. And was that statement written on this day, March 7, 2006? Answer, yes. During the interview at Kayla's home, did she appear confused at all, unsure what she was telling you? And then it goes on, and that's pretty much all that I've highlighted on this particular day. You're free to read it and get more of the context. However, I'm going to stop right there because, to me, I think it's really important to point out what they did and what we know that they did. For instance, without a doubt, we know for a fact that, Brendan really told Kayla, and everyone else knew as well, he'd been told he was fat at school. He wanted to lose weight. His girlfriend had broke up with him. I guess she called him fat too. So again, he was trying to lose weight because he really liked this girl, apparently, 16 years old. I think we all remember those days. So, he was hurt. And so the crying, and this crying uncontrollably, I'm sure that was an ad lib piling on by these investigators, which I think is really pretty freaking terrible, in my opinion. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking for a moment and let anyone on the panel here or anyone out there in the comments, if you got something to say, let's get it out there. I'm gonna turn this particular part off for a moment.
Well, Tim Hogan did mention that Brendan and Kayla both stood up and stated it was all lies. Those poor kids. Just
Yep.
shocking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they're both kids. Okay. First of all, she's only 14 years old. All right. I mean, come on. You know, and Brendan, he was just being a kid. You know, his first girlfriend, a bat. You know what I mean? You know how the telephone line goes too when you hear kids' stories. You know, telephone never played that. They grow.
Right. We got Dr.
Well-
Silkman. Oh, go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. We also all know how law enforcement leaned on everybody in that family.
Yeah, we've had discussions here recently that we found out that through the phone calls that apparently the interview that we can't get, they really were on Bobby pretty hard on that November 9th interview that we can't seem to get a copy of, and I think that's terrible. But they did lean on not only family but non-family. They were all over Jody, right, wrong, or indifferent with her. She's got her own issues. So, yeah.
Anybody that was familiar with the Averys, you know what I mean, in a close circuit way, they all got it. You know, nobody was immune to the police at all. Nobody.
Well,
what they were doing was exactly what they did, what they wanted to do: create division and create suspicion and mistrust. You know, that's what they wanted to do, and they did.
Thank you for saying that, because I was going to. I appreciate you just going right in my brain and pulling that out. Thanks.
And didn't they also punish Jody because one time Steve was in one police car and she was in another, and they like passed each other on the road?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
she
they
was able
passed
to look
each
at
other.
him.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
they
first of
punished
all-
her for that.
Yeah, where did they get the right to tell her she can't date him? You know, you got 2 weeks to move out.
Look
and
at him
can't-
in a passing car.
Well, I can't even get over. Like I said, how can anybody tell somebody you can't? Okay, so you get in trouble and you're a drunk, and I think to fix that you need to divorce your husband, okay, and move out of the house. What? You know what I mean? I don't get where they had the control to tell her to move, to stop seeing Steven. That, he wasn't the reason why she was
He wasn't
drinking,
even a
driving.
drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
They went way beyond. They went way beyond what they should be able to do in every aspect.
Yeah, I don't see how you can, somebody on probation. I get that, they can put in certain things that a person can't do to being on probation. She clearly had a problem with the drinking. Okay, you can't have any alcohol. If you get caught on with alcohol during your probation period, you're going to get in trouble. But beyond that, I don't know how they can say, "Hey, you can't hang around a certain person." You can't even look at them.
Yeah, well, I mean, is that not how yous work part of the probation process, that a felon can't be with a felon, and at that time Stephen would have been classed as a felon because of the gun charge? So could that be why they say you're not allowed to see Stephen, because it might have been sort of that situation?
Possible, yeah.
Nope.
That's true.
She wasn't a felon.
No, she's talking about Stephen being a felon.
I was gonna say that's, if she's out, especially on parole or whatever, she's in the middle of investigation of her own thing. They are allowed to say you can't hang around people who are charged with certain crimes and all that.
Right.
But Stephen was not the reason why she was drinking, and the problem she had. It wasn't him.
Oh no! I mean, I think it's well known.
Totally different. So
no,
I don't
but
believe
if
her
you're-
probation even had the right to do that, because I know a lot of people on probation, and
Runs
unless you're a
with
felon,
scissors. Runs with
unless
scissors
you're a
is
felon
asking,
here.
was it part of a parole? Maybe that
That's
he
what
was.
she
was-
drinking?
That's
I
what
don't
we're
know.
saying.
She was
Yeah.
still in jail at the time. They still had her in custody. So it wasn't any kind of a parole thing.
Yeah, they worked
I'm
on her
not
so hard there.
justifying it, but
If you
It
remember
does
it,
make sense though.
If you remember at the end
Well,
of,
no. Sorry, Jax.
if you remember during Ma'am season part 1, toward the end, I don't know if it was episode 9 or whatever, they basically had flipped her at that point. If you guys remember, she was leaving the area. She was actually in a car. You know, she wasn't like saying, you know, he was guilty or anything, but basically she was staying away from him. So I get, and I don't think it's right at all. I really don't.
Yeah, I just as it's not part of her probation. Unless you're a felon, then they can tell you things like she can't go to no bars and things like that. Can't be around alcohol. You know what I mean?
Right.
So she could have got in trouble just by sitting with Alan having a beer. You know what I mean?
Right.
That might have been it. You know what I mean? But still, I think they went beyond their legal, their legal line of things on most everything too. They did.
Well, especially with that,
everything they did.
You know, getting back
Brendan
to the
going to get his pants. How about that? You know, I mean, they took Brendan in. Can we go get your pants? Yeah.
Oh, we entered the residence. Yeah, but you know, getting back to this other, and about the question of how they treated the family, because it basically started in November, if we're honest, and after it was about the middle of November, Wendy Baldwin went to the Candy and Earl's house to interview Marie. And to try to get to flip her after everything that had been done, and that prior charge and not everything was done. It was over, and they tried to reopen it and get her to flip, and that went so far as to Wendy Baldwin basically, you know, in February I think it was, telling Marie that she was going to create force a John Doe hearing or Jane Doe hearing, whatever you call it. And subpoena her to testify, and everybody would know everything. Everything's gonna be exposed. I mean, at that point, what does the girl do? You know, okay, whatever you want me to do, just tell me what to say.
Jack.
Hey, Doc.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. If I could, I haven't had my coffee yet, but if I could just make a comment. Look, I agree 100%, especially with what the panel has been saying. It's pretty clear what they wanted to do. What law enforcement wanted to do was to fracture the family from the get-go. They wanted to create a barrier, as in they wanted to set up this tension between the family and Stephen Avery.
That's right.
So in other words, what they were trying to do is to get people to flip, people like Jody, people like Kayla, and also people like Brendan. They wanted them basically to say nasty and bad things against Stephen, right? They're trying to set up that tension. And the law enforcement knew that there was tension there, especially with the Marie Avery situation. So, and you can see, remember the early reports of Candy when she appeared on TV?
That's
Initially,
right.
She said, oh, look, hey, Stephen, he's not guilty. You know, what are you guys doing? You're setting him up. And then her comments flipped completely to, yeah, lock him away. He's dirty. He's disgusting. And remember, Stephen was complaining in the phone calls that not only was Candy saying all these negative things in the press, but his own brother, Earl. So that's exactly what law enforcement wanted. A fractured family, and that's exactly what we have today.
100% agree, Doc. You know, I see TTM just right quickly. TTM Fangirl says Candy, Candy, actions are questionable, very questionable, and she's right. And I'll say why. I've done it before. I actually think I did it the other day during the Uncle Ken book reading, Doc, is that, you know, unbeknownst to a lot of people, all these other things happen, you know, trying to educate. I mean, for a lot of this is repeating stuff that, you know, a lot of us know, but there are new people coming along now, and they need to know this background information. So this case happened that Candy basically accused Stephen of raping Marie, and they investigated. It was investigated, and they found out that it was not true. She was not raped. It was now whether, you know, however sketchy that may be, and really poor judgment on Stephen's part. That's a different thing, but it was, you know, it was consensual. Number two,
Statutory at best, right?
At best, yeah. But number two, they tried to reinvestigate this beginning in November, like I said, of 2005, and they worked on her for months. But add to that, there were phone calls. I'm not going to play them. People can just take my word for it or not. But there are phone calls where Brendan actually calls to talk to Marie or Kayla, gets a hold of Candy, and she's, we don't have dates for these phone calls, but it had to be after March 1st. And things were already progressing at that point. We know they are because there was a search warrant. He calls them to talk to Kayla or Marie. He talks to Candy. But unbeknownst to him and pretty much anyone else in the family, she's been in contact with Fassbender saying, hey, I got these messages on the computer between Kayla and Marie. You guys should really take a look. So what did they do? They get a warrant April 21st, 2006, and law enforcement goes and seizes the Dassey computer, Bobby's computer. In my opinion, it was in his room. Now, I think we can all deduce from various things. It probably was in the main room, the living room, but it got moved to Bobby's room because we saw the video. We've seen that. So that's, we know that to be a fact. So here she is in the background doing all this crap, pardon my language, but that's fact. And that did happen. So, but she's playing nice on the phone. Brendan not only didn't know this in the beginning, but I think he began to suspect something because, things were said. He talked to his mom, Barb, and she was telling him, about the statement that Kayla made. But, it really came out, it was about this girl that he was upset about. Other people, kids at school, just being dicks to him and calling him fat. And he was trying to lose weight, to be more acceptable to the girl because he really liked her and, to get that weight off of him. But they twisted that. And, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jack, is that this? If you listen to the testimony, and I just want to say, I want to give a plug to Alice. I hate her even more now for reading the part of Wiegert, but you did a brilliant job. If you think about it, right, what they were trying to do, they needed an entry point to get to Brendan Dassey, right? They just can't randomly put a spotlight on Brendan Dassey and say, okay, we're going to question you now, Brendan. So essentially they did this through Kayla. Now, this is the important point, and this is exactly what Wiegert said during the trial. The reason why they wanted to talk to Brendan is because they believed Brendan displayed changes of behavior.
Yeah.
Massive weight loss and uncontrollable crying. So hence that gave them justification to put the spotlight on Brendan, right? So in Wiegert's mind, they were looking for this change of behavior. Well, we now know that the weight loss wasn't that severe, and it was because his girlfriend called him fat, and he was very aware of his weight. Hey, most teenage boys and girls are aware of their weight, especially at that age.
And self-conscious too, Doc. And self-conscious too, right?
Very, very self-conscious. And maybe the uncontrollable crying was the fact that his uncle got arrested again. And Brendan Dassey was very close to his uncle. And he even said, well, we cry for the people that we lose. He was talking about the re-arresting of his uncle.
That's right.
That's why he was crying, because his greatest nightmare occurred. They took away his uncle, and he was good friends with Steve, and he helped Steve all the time.
That's right. And he came over and they did things together. That he was trying to raise money. That's why they were selling the land to fix that Suzuki, so that he would have something to drive when he got his license. So
Sherry Lynn in the chat is asking, wasn't Candy friends with Colburn?
That's the story that we got, that they knew each other. We know that Colburn did come to the yard because he was a old car enthusiast, and And then I guess he was fixing up a couple of cars of his own, so he would come there to get parts. So he was known, but we did, and this has been kind of a well-known thing since the early days of Reddit when we first got started, and information began to flow out that they did know each other in some capacity. I can't tell you what it is because I really don't know. But yes.
Jack 61, just a comment before I make a coffee. But this is pervasive throughout the trial. That is, law enforcement give one set of opinions. Oh, these signs were demonstrated by Brendan because of. And it's interesting that there's always an alternative, non-nefarious explanation for those things, right? Law enforcement saying, oh, Brendan lost weight. Brendan was crying uncontrollably. Brendan said this. Brendan said that. There are always alternative, non-nefarious explanations for those things, right? And it's interesting that every time the defense team brought those up, there was objections all the time. And it's ridiculous, right? Because they knew how paper thin their case was, especially against Brendan.
Agreed. 100% agreed. So, but I this entry point, and they really worked on Kayla. I mean, you can just tell from what little bit I read there. There's more. That wasn't the end of it. There's more than that. Of course, we know that Kayla, she came to the stand and she recanted later on. I'm not going to read that. Maybe we'll cover that in another open mic. But she recanted what she said. And it's just crazy to me knowing what I know now and what all of us know now. The terrible things that and efforts that they made to pin this or put Brendan in there. I actually saw a comment on Reddit the other day. Well, Brendan put himself there. He, blah, 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 and really going off and saying it was really Brendan's own fault that he's in prison. That's what they said. I was like, what? I didn't get in an argument with him because it would just been a constant back and forth. And no, thank you.
But sorry, Jack, this one. The comment I want to make though, interesting what you were reading out. Interesting that Mark Wiegert didn't initially say what Brendan said.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Brendan said he saw Teresa Horbach pinned up in a chair.
Yep.
In a chair. And if you notice, Mark Wiegert conveniently left that out until Edelstein said, oh, that's not exactly what Brendan said. And Mark Wiegert fobbed it off as though there was no difference to seeing but she was pinned up. Excuse me, if Brendan is saying, yeah, I saw her pinned up in a chair, that's a huge difference to being pinned up and chained to a bed. Would you agree?
Oh, massive difference because that wasn't true at all.
So all of a sudden you can see what Wiegert is doing. He's minimizing the damage, and also the way Fallon questioned him. Fallon knew exactly what the defense was going to pull apart, and that's why they mentioned the orientation of the bed. But maybe you'll talk about that a little bit later.
Thanks, Doc. I really didn't highlight that portion of the testimony because there's so many things that they did during the trial. It was like this Judge Jekyll and Hyde in the way he answered questions, and I'm talking about Wiegert, between how he talked to Fallon and how he would talk to Edelstein, because he was just, I don't know, I just shook my head. And I still think it was a real, I don't know, maybe Edelstein and Brendan thought that if they said anything to Judge Fox and said, hey, please instruct him to answer the question and no more, don't stop ad-libbing, because that's not what I ask him. And if I say anything to him, it's going to be taken another way. So but they never did that. And I don't understand that at all.
And it's not surprisingly at all, Jack.
Yeah, thank you. How many?
Yeah,
we have a few comments here in the chat. People are asking, TTM Fangirl asked, has Candy commented lately on the case? And Sherry says, yeah, where's Candy now? And, what's she have to say now?
And TTM Fangirl asked, she left Earl, right? With a question mark, and remarried with a question mark. So I'm not for sure about all of this.
That is correct. Yep, that's correct. She left Earl. I don't know about the remarriage, but I think that's correct. But I really don't know anything factual beyond the fact that her and Earl did divorce.
We know for sure her hatred towards Stephen Avery was unmistakable.
Yeah, that's true. I think that all originated because of this, relationship, good, bad, or indifferent between Stephen and Marie. But one of the big problems with that is the love letters that Marie wrote to Stephen, and they had those. So for the police, it was, what do they do with that? He shouldn't have done it. I mean, that's just a fact. There were other ways for him to have some kind of hook up with some young lady, just leaving prison. I just think it was just poor judgment on his part. But
yeah, Jack, I agree with you on that. It is poor judgment on his part, but also, she was a young teenage lassie at the time, and when a young teenage lassie gets infatuated with somebody, it doesn't matter how many times she's told to stay away or
that's right.
anything like that. They're going to lie, they're going to disguise, they're going to say that they're going out with this pal and that pal when they're away with the boy that they're not allowed to be hanging about with or anything like that. They do silly things because they're infatuated and they think it's love and everything like that. And it could have just been a scenario like that. But because of how Sandy felt about Stephen, I think that it's been twisted that it became a sexual assault.
Well, yeah, I think that for somebody, I don't really know Candy, but there was a lot of things that happened. We've talked about the jealousy that probably was created, probably extreme jealousy, because the family knew that Stephen was going to be potentially going to get a lot of money. He's going to be a millionaire if things had went forward as they should have. And I'm sure that created its own set of problems. But, Stephen made it well known that Candy wasn't getting a dime from him. I think he actually said that more than once. But to your point about Marie, she probably understood that. And I think that what Jody had even made comments, or somebody made comments, that, Stephen is talking about that, he's going to lavish her with, I'm talking about Marie, with gifts and, whatever she wanted when he gets his money, in quotations. So I'm sure that infatuated her as well. So you're correct. So any other comments? Thanks for, we got quite a few comments rolling. I see yours and Mystic Jinx. Great job, girl, yesterday. Fantastic. Hats off to you. Keep it going. So we got lots of comments rolling. So if anybody, any other comments before I move forward with our next part here that I want to pull up for in the trial.
Just carry on.
Okay. All right. Let me get that back open. Make sure. Okay. What I'm pulled up now is from day 5. And it's really just one kind of short section because it really, really grinds my gears. So Edelstein is now doing the questioning. He's on cross. So about Turnley Edelstein, these jeans, the cuffs, the bullets, the shells, the shovels, the seat, and everything that the government's paraded in here, other than these which contain what are believed to be bleach spots, which Brendan told you about, none of these items have fingerprints, DNA, or any other scientific evidence connecting Brendan to Dassey to the death of Teresa Halbach. Yes or no? That's correct. Here's his add-in. They had 5 days to clean up. Now, damn. That's a hell of an add-in right there. But he's correct. Everything he listed in his approach here to this question to Wiegert, nothing at all connected Brendan to this. Nothing. Comments?
5 days to clean up. Is that accurate, though? I mean, they were on the property on the 3rd, were they not? Coburn checking in on Avery. That's 3 days, correct?
Yep. You're correct.
Like I just said in chat, sorry, they only had 3 days.
Well, yeah, I mean, Remaker and I think Coburn did a walkthrough on the 3rd, and as Jinx said, they didn't notice anything, no bleach smell, or that's really kind of important because that's another piece that Wiegert tried to pull a little bit later.
I believe
They didn't notice nothing. They didn't notice any crime.
Okay, so on the 3rd, and Lank and Remaker went in on the 4th. And remember, they ran his plates in his driveway, and they heard it on their little radio, and they went out there and found them out there running his plates, and then he let them do the initial walkthrough, and there was Remaker's like, all clear, nothing to see here.
Yeah, and like Ronald said, they had 8 days to do their planting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
let's remember this now. So when the comment does come up that they had 5 days, it's absolutely wrong. The fact is, it was only 3.
Yeah, that statement is wrong. It's flat wrong, and then the problem, the real problem I have is that it wasn't rehabilitated by Edelstein. Now I know that they were in at the end of the day here. Let me see here. Let me get back over here. Yeah, I think they're at the end of, pretty much at the end of the day. He didn't rehabilitate that statement because now Wiegert has made a claim. Okay, what's your evidence of cleanup? What are you introducing into trial? Because by those words, to me, he's introducing something factual into the trial, and I wouldn't have let that hang, but he did. So, anyway. All right. Any other comments before we move on to the... Let me get that off here for a minute. Any other comments before we move on to the next section?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Sorry, I just got back. Well, just a couple of points. That goes to show the complete, utter weakness that the state had against Brendan. Because what Edelstein did, the way he rifled it off, the state knew that they had absolutely no forensic evidence to tie Brendan Dassey to any crime, right? And so think about this. With their multi-million-dollar investigation, the best that Wiegert could come up with, right? Oh, they had 5 days to clean up. Yeah. That's it. That's this some result of their multi-million-dollar investigation. The only thing that Wiegert can say, in essence, was, "Hey, yeah, you're right. We can't actually connect your client to the murder, to the rape, mutilation, and murder of Teresa Halbach. It's because they had 5 days to clean up. That's it. They cannot link Brendan Dassey to any crime." Right? And it's true, you're right, Jack. Edelstein should have really pushed him and hammered him. But you could tell that the judge didn't want anything to do with it, and the judge was trying to speed up the questioning. It truly was disgusting.
Oh, yeah, he was a clock watcher, just like Willis, especially when it got to the points with the defense. He did give him, he did overrule a few things and force answers, but by and large, you're exactly right. He wanted to keep things rolling and not let them move off into these other areas from this add-on statement. So,
yes, but what was important here, Jack, was the sheer arrogance of Mark Wiegert, because Mark Wiegert knew that if he conceded on any point at all, the case will fall apart against Brendan Dassey. Yep. And that's why I brought up the bedroom, the orientation of the bedroom. That was so...
Wiegert would have been toast. He would have been toast.
Yep, and he knew it. You look at Wiegert and his body language. He was sweating bullets. He knew that they had nothing against Brendan Dassey. Tom Fallon knew he had nothing against Brendan Dassey, right? So have a look what they got wrong.
Well, Doc, if you have time, why don't you give for those that don't understand exactly what you mean, we know what you're talking about, but there may be some out there that don't quite understand this bedroom orientation and the issue with it. If you can briefly explain that.
Yeah, I will very briefly. Brendan made 2 fundamental mistakes, right? First one was he said, "I saw Teresa Halbach pinned in a chair." that straight away was not true. In fact, even being pinned in a bed, that was not true either. But he made a huge error, right? You could tell the difference of someone being pinned up in a chair compared to pinned up in a bed. That's one. The second was the orientation of the bed. So when they questioned Brendan said, when I was standing in the hallway, that's the hallway going to the bedroom, I saw Teresa hooked up or chained up in the bed. The only way you're going to see that from the hallway is if the bed is positioned such that when you look down the hallway, you can actually see the bed. There's only one problem. All the photographs show the bed tucked around the corner, which means that if you're looking down the hallway, you can't actually see Teresa Hallbach in the bed. And that's why they spoke to Jody Stokowski, who was in prison. I'll be back in a sec. I just need to take my dog out. I'll be back in a sec.
Yep. Well, to finish Doc's statement there, yeah, she was in prison, and they had asked her, and there was actually a conversation with Jody that I think it was actually a phone call. Correct me, help me out here, guys, because I haven't listened to all of them, but I'm pretty sure I heard this conversation that Jody had with Stephen, and allegedly said, "Oh, that's how I wanted the bedroom anyway," or I'd suggested that before, something to that effect.
Yeah, she was pissed.
Yeah.
But then here,
she got mad because it was switched.
What Silkman just said is actually more proof for the fact that anything that did come out of Brendan Dassey was lies, as far as, you know, they coaxed him to say anything that came out of his mouth to begin with.
I just want to mention that that she went to prison or to jail in August. So he had 2 months to change his room. Like, for her to say, "Oh, well, he changed his room," because that's what's going to be said in trial. He had 2 months to do so. There's no evidence by her that says, "Well, he changed it within the last 2 weeks," because he was in jail.
That's right. She went to jail for a DUI for how long was it? 6 months or something like that?
Yeah, 6 months. So here's the issue, right? Brendan, on the October 31st, right? October 31st, witnesses said that he saw Teresa Hallbach pinned up in the bed, right? Yep. Forget about the chair. He saw her pinned up in the bed. That means that when Colburn went into the bedroom, that meant that within 1 or 2 days, Stephen Avery had to change his entire bedroom, including moving the dust.
Right? That's right.
Including moving the dust.
His bed frame, or his bed sheets, his bed stuff, and his mattress in it before, and have an extra mattress just laying around to put back on his bed when he changed it around.
And they found no bed springs burnt in the fire pit either.
Correct. So the orientation of the room was at 90 degrees to what Brendan Dassey saw. And you know what's unbelievable? Instead of Mark Wiegert saying, "Oh, yeah, you know, that is a significant difference," he goes, "Oh, yeah, but that was based on what Jody said and what Brendan said." Excuse me, Jody was in prison, right?
That's right.
And there's no way that Stephen was going to completely reorientate his bedroom and move the dust because when you move furniture, you disturb the dust. You actually can see the impressions on the carpet, right?
I was going to say that the impressions of the end.
There's none of that, which means that Brendan's recollections are bullshit.
That's right.
Complete and utter bullshit. And think about this, right? If you look at the Ryan Ferguson case and the Erickson case, Erickson had a dream, and there was no forensic evidence that tied Erickson and Ferguson to the crime scene, but a dream. So those two got convicted, life imprisonment, and Brendan Dassey got convicted with no forensic evidence against him, right? Look how crazy this situation is. Your words can land you in prison for life. That's why you've got to be very careful.
Yeah, don't talk to police without a lawyer present, and not a Lynn Kaczynski lawyer, a decent lawyer. You can get one. So, you know, Sherry Lynn Montello made a good statement here. Brendan had no idea what was going on to happen and the gravity of the situation he was in. And I explained this. I was talking to Galateki earlier, and we had talked about various things. He was asking me about the open mic, and I said, if you look at Brendan and you think about what happened on March 1st, basically he was so clueless as to what he had said, killing, raping, mutilating Teresa, and then within a very few minutes he says, "Hey guys, this is going to take much longer. I got a project due in 6 periods. I need to get that turned in." What? Any honest investigator would have said, "What do you mean? Don't you understand what you just admitted to?" But they didn't do that at all. They pushed forward, and it actually made things worse. So that's a great point.
Yeah, I completely agree, Jack. Any reasonable investigator, when Brendan came out and said that, they should have clicked right away that this laddie has not got a clue what's just happened to him and what he's just said. And I guarantee you, if you were to hand Brendan the statements now that he said back then, he probably wouldn't be able to remember half of the things that he said. He probably go, I can't remember saying that. I don't remember saying that. And I don't remember saying that. So how can they keep him convicted on his words? He was a 15-year-old child who was probably in shock because he's just been told that, because you've told us all this, you're not going home, Brendan. After them telling him, we've got your back, Brendan. We're going to go to bat for you, son. I'm not a police officer right now. I'm a father. And you're about the same age as my son. That's giving him all false hope. So no wonder he turned round and said at the end of it, are we going to be finished soon because I've got a project to hand in the 6th hour?
Well, and they're also telling him, hey, that's okay. That's okay. If you did something that
they are trying to ease his conscience on, we're your friends. We're here to help you. We care about you. We're daddies. Dumb shit like that.
Right. That's exactly right. And it, for
it falls
Brendan,
under making false promises, right? It
does to me, because the way that they approached him, the psychological warfare that he had no way of, he didn't know, he's just a kid. He's just trying to satisfy them, tell them what they wanted to hear. And basically, because every time that they said, oh, that's not true, or they get rough with him, you're lying, Brendan, we know you're lying. We know what happened. We just need to hear you say it. So then he would change his story. And, to Edelstein's point, good side, he did point that out numerous times in his cross-examination of Wiegert. And, of course, Wiegert would answer, yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Please stop saying that. So any questions or comments that we need to cover in the chat before we move to the next page of the testimony? This one's a little bit longer.
We've got TTM Fangirl saying the bleach on the pants is the proof. Dude, there was hardly any bleach on those pants that I see in the evidence photo. I don't know. There's so much here that they manipulated. I can never see this stuff having come from Brendan. When you see the whole big picture, you see what they've been doing. So go ahead, continue.
Well, to that point, I made a point a long time ago, because I'm thinking to myself, well, if they're wading through this blood, they're cleaning up this big, huge blood area that Krauss is claiming, then that means they probably waded into it. So, and they're using bleach and all this other stuff, paint thinner. What about their shoes? Well, sure, there's some blood spot that they found on their shoes, but they didn't. There are photos of the shoes, and you can tell that, that it looked like one shoe. I think it's the right shoe of Brendan's. Looks like it's cleaner than the other one, which is a little weird. Still, we know for a fact that, the little nooks and crevices of shoes and the tread, you can try blood and other biological
I just want
material.
to say on all of that, you know, when I was like 17, I had a very serious car accident. I had been, my head was split wide open, but I ended up having to throw away anything and everything from that day, even my shoes, because the blood was everywhere. I'm talking everywhere. And when the people that brought me to the hospital, because we're way out in the country, and I was lucky someone was passing by, but when they brought me, they looked through my stuff to find out where I lived to go get my husband. So they went and got him, and he said he told them, wait, stop. He wanted to see the vehicle, and he said he almost passed out because he thought for sure that I had been killed, and they were assuring him the whole rest of the way to the hospital that I was okay, the doctors were just sewing me up and blah, blah, blah. He said there was blood everywhere, inside, outside the vehicle, everywhere. So you cannot tell me they're surmising from any kind of evidence that this actually took place. It's a story they're creating. I can't help it. It just bugs the piss out of me.
Well, these bleach spots are ridiculous.
Well, it's been surmised by some people that the bleach spots on the pants were actually pool bleach for his pool, because they're up too high. So if they're walking through this blood, like you said, on the floor in the garage cleaning it up with all these chemicals and bleach, you know what gets ruined on your pants would be your cuffs.
That's right.
And your knees.
That's right.
And instead, his spot is up more near the upper thigh area.
Yeah, so I'm just curious. He's supposedly murdering this girl with blood all over, and yet the bleach on his pants is just in small little specks here and there. So what did he do? Spot clean his jeans with the bleach? There's no other evidence of any other blood. It's just bleach. I poured some bleach in my sink the other day, and I got a spot on my towel. So does that make me a murderer?
Don't be caught. Don't be caught in the bleach aisle. It's a grocery store.
I mean, it's not even just that. It's anybody, whether you're male or female. If you're male, you cut yourself shaving, and it bleeds like hell. You know, I remember my dad coming out of the toilet with all the different bits of toilet roll stuck to his chin, covered in blood. If a woman shaves her legs and she nicks herself, the blood pours. You know, you get a cut on your finger. It bloody bleeds and it goes everywhere. It might only be droplets, but it goes everywhere and drips everywhere until you get a plaster for it.
I think
there is no way that Teresa was stabbed and slashed and everything like that in that room, because that would have been up the walls. It would have been in every crack, every crevice, every bit of clothing. The same with the garage. We are being shot in the garage. That garage was wasn't like a tidy garage. There was stuff everywhere. It would have been covered, and they found nothing.
Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know, Alice. You know, you read Mr. Wiegert. You know, he had an explanation of how blood, you know, stays inside, and we're going to get to that. I think I highlighted that part.
I forgot about that, Jack. So
it's pretty.
that's right.
It's pretty magical, I got to tell you. I was impressed. Anyway,
but just to add to that, but this what highlights how Twilight Zone this case really is, right? Yep. The CSI team would have gone in, right? They would have gone in the trailer. They would have checked everything. They would have gone in the garage and checked everything. And their conclusion is, boys, there's nothing in here, right? They're not stupid. They've been to other crime scenes, right? And hence, that's why Fassbender had to say, remember Fassbender, he said, well, you know, Brenda did say that he cut her across the throat, and he did say that they stabbed her in the stomach. By the way, the stomach contains a lot of organs which are full of blood, right?
That's right.
And then they said, well, how do you explain the fact that there's no blood on the bedding or the mattress? Oh, well, the cut across the throat was not a deep one. Excuse me, it now wasn't a deep one. You got all the major blood vessels in your neck, right? You nick one of those, you're toast. You're splurting blood up the wall. And think about it, right? The CSI investigators, they took away the paneling off the wall. They took away the bed frame. They even ripped up the carpet because blood sinks down to the bottom. Even if you use a carpet cleaner, you can't remove the blood that sinks all the way down to the bottom onto the floor. What did they find? Jack 61, what did they find?
Not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing. I'm telling you, you need to hire Stephen and Brendan as CSI cleanup gurus. These guys are brilliant.
Oh, they would make millions and billions out of that deal. But, you're right. And I think this next section, we get into, Wiegert's explanation into how Brendan was connected forensically to this crime. And I think I got that part. I hope I did. I can't remember. I was highlighting quite a bit. But if everyone's ready, we'll move on to this. This is day 6, by the way. And again, Wiegert, they continue on with his redirect examination. And so this is from Fallon. And he talked, I didn't highlight this part, but he's talking about water bolt action, boat lever action guns. He talks about that and sees from Stephen Avery's trailer. Anyway, let's move on to where I really wanted to get to. He says, this is Fallon. Quote, or question. All right, now counsel asked you, I'm going to switch now. This is great. To the SUV and this blood spatter question. You were asked a question on cross-examination about wouldn't you expect blood spatter in the SUV if a stabbing, for instance, had occurred there, and you said you would not. Tell us why. Answer, that's correct. When somebody's stabbed, there isn't this great amount of blood that goes flying out of a stab wound. Anybody that's in the medical field has knowledge of that. When you talk about blood spatter, it usually comes from something higher velocity. Stabbing a knife into somebody isn't going to cause all this blood to go anywhere. When you stab somebody in the area, from my limited medical knowledge, well, where is it that it says he stabbed her? It's in the cavity. Even free bleeding, it's going to bleed into that cavity. It's pretty simple. There isn't going to be this big blood spatter. It's not going to happen. I'm going to stop right there before we continue. I'm sure, hopefully, I would think we got some comments here. You get stabbed, the blood goes inside your body, right? I couldn't believe when I read this.
Wow.
If you leave the knife in there and put a massive bandage, I guess yes, correct.
Trust me, if you get stabbed, there's going to come a moment in time, very shortly after, you will bleed out.
I was hoping
even if it did miraculously just fill in the cavity and not bleed out, when he picks her up and carries her down the hallway to the garage, or picks her up in the garage, it's going to come out dumping out.
Yep, excellent point. The mere fact that the heart is still beating, right, and still pumping, which means that blood, if you break your blood vessels, blood's going to pour out, right? Because your circulatory system is a closed system. It's like piping. You cut open the pipes, blood's going to splurt out, and it's going to splurt out everywhere. And Bibi just said it, right? They allegedly picked up Teresa Hallbach and moved her from the bedroom, from the trailer to the garage. The mere fact that they're moving and shifting a person means that gravity is going to take over, right? And that's why they checked. That's why they checked the steps from the trailer to the garage. They were looking for droplets of blood. Did they find any droplets of blood? No. Right? The only droplets of blood that they found were in the bathroom, and they all belonged to Stephen Avery. No blood belonging to Teresa Hallbach was ever found in the trailer. None. And no blood was found in the garage either.
No,
right?
just a little bit of blood from Stephen from whatever, but it was nothing, literally.
That's 100% correct. So now they had to explain how they got to think about it. A gruesome rape, 2 of them, and a gruesome beating and stabbing and restraining to a bed. Now the 2 idiotic investigators had to say in front of a judge and a jury, there was no forensic evidence of any of that taking place. Now,
and remember what Ken said? Remember what Ken said in his book before you continue, Doc? He's going through all this stuff, and one of the things he says, and she still didn't die.
That's correct. What he was trying to do was to prolong the agony and prolong the misery and say, look at these 2 bastards, Stephen and Brendan. They did all this torture and this poor woman still didn't die. Right. Because what he was trying to do was get the sympathetic angle going. He had no proof that any of this took place. I'm telling you, Ken Kratz was in his element.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Are there any comments we need to cover? Anybody else got something before we move on?
David K in the chat says entrapment set up, blood gonna flow like a burst pipe. Yes, it's going to flow like a burst pipe. And not only that, they cut her hair as well. And when you wash your hair falls out when you wash your hair. And sometimes it can be a lot, sometimes it can be a wee bit. And for them not to even find a single hair belonging to Teresa, whether it was cut or pulled or what, just baffles me completely.
Well, yeah, he did talk about, if you remember during his testimony, Edelstein wouldn't really let him explain because Edelstein knew that Wiegert wanted to control that cross examination. He wouldn't let him do it. I mean, good for him that he didn't about the cutting of hair, and then talking about the carpet cleaner, and the vacuum cleaner. Oh my God. They would have been there. Yeah. He's going through this process. I'll just explain briefly, because Edelstein questioned him. Well, they vacuumed. They took the vacuum and they took the carpet cleaner. Didn't they find hairs? Well, yeah, but we didn't. Our limited resources, we couldn't, examine every hair that was in there. We'd be here for 2 or 3 years examining all these thousands and thousands of hairs. What?
Yeah, and was it no something? And they were cut, so there was no follicle on the end, and it was like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Is that actually coming out of your mouth? For the last few nights, I've wanted to go and wash my mouth out with soap.
Well, you should do that. Yeah, you did a great job with Wiegert. Anyway. So, all right. If there's nothing else, let's move on. So we'll start on 23. Question. All right. So there's a difference between spatter and pooling of blood, for instance. Answer. Yes, sir. Question. All right. And just so that we're clear, we didn't see any pooling in the center of that cargo area upon forensic examination. Here we go. Answer. No. I wouldn't expect it to. Great. So you've ad-libbed again, and Fallon let him. Question. All right. Now, did you learn that there were that it was at least 2 gunshot wounds to the head at the same time? Did you learn about both gunshot findings at the same time? I got a real problem with this testimony, and I didn't really talk about it before, but we can discuss it after I read this, and I'll tell you why. No, actually, we had learned about the first gunshot wound. I believe it was around November. Correction, let me go back. I believe it was around February 27th. We learned much later than that, and I believe it was after this interview about the second gunshot wound that they found. So, no, we did not know that there were 2 suspected entrance wounds. So, I'm going to stop again right here because Jinx, you may know, or Doc, or somebody, I swear I remember that there was a finding in November of at least one gunshot wound that Eisenberg reported. And I'm almost positive that I remember that Eisenberg turned in a report in January of 2007 about the 2 gunshot wounds, and they had done radiopaque testing on those skull pieces. Now, somebody correct me. Help me. Anyone?
Yeah.
They took an X-ray and the radiopaque showed up. I don't recall there being radiopaque testing to test it to see if it matched the bullet.
No. I meant the radiopaque that it showed up. But to clarify.
Yes, it showed up in the X-rays.
But they knew that there was 2 distinct shots.
Yeah, I think it's like 1.5 painted actually, because wasn't one piece only like a half a piece?
Yeah, that's correct. They did the cranial bone fragments that they examined. They didn't have a complete round bullet hole. They only had a partial one, because remember, only I think about 35% of the skull was found. The other skull pieces were not found. But you're right. They did know relatively early on that the victim was shot at least twice in the skull. Correct.
But they did find it out later. But before they talked to Brendan, I don't think he's correct in what he's saying here. That's what my point.
No, they knew that before they spoke to Brendan. That's why they kept on. I have to check my notes, but everything happened within a very short time frame. That's why they were questioning him about what did you do to the head, Brendan, right? So they knew that she had been shot in the skull at least twice.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. Let's move on. We're on page. Okay.
I'm going to hold that thought for just a moment. I got something to say. And I know what you're talking about, and I know what we're going through here, but I have to say something. And Silkman, if you knew you were taking someone to charge them with a murder, would you absolutely, unequivocally want to prove 100% to the best of your ability this individual's remains was the individual you were talking about, so that you could prove that they absolutely did sustain a gunshot wound to the head? That's a big thorn in my side for me.
Yeah, well, I know this is very controversial. The problem is that the DNA testing that they did, no bones were DNA tested, right? They didn't test any of the bones.
Thank you.
That's true. They didn't test any of the bones. They only tested some charred muscle tissue. They only got 7 out of 15 alleles. And
they are more concerned with getting their story out than they are with actual facts.
Correct.
That's all I wanted to say.
Correct. By the letter of the law, you need 20 out of 20 alleles before you can definitively say this person is the person that we've identified as the victim. Back in 2005, it was 15 alleles. And that's why Kathleen Zellner was very keen to get her hands on the bones for further DNA testing.
Exactly. So, well, I just felt like that they actually knew that there was 2 gunshot wounds going into that, and what he's saying here.
15th of November, they found out. I just checked my notes.
There you go. So they knew.
15th of November. Yes, they did.
So basically, he's just, in my opinion, he perjured himself, which is, I'm not surprised.
Right.
No, I'm not surprised. I'll just give his answer. So.
Yeah. Beveling in the skull fragments is very obvious. Okay. It's very, very obvious. As soon as you see the characteristic beveling, it's indicative of a high velocity gunshot wound to the skull. No question about it. The x-rays proved that a bullet transited the skull, right? Because it left radiopaque lead fragments. There is no dispute. The victim was shot at least twice in the skull, at least twice.
Right. Oh.
Yeah, and not only that, Jack, he perjured himself all the way through day 4, day 5, and day 6. because of the lies and the bullshit that spewed out that guy's mouth.
It was continual from the very start.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I mean, one of the things that got me that he testified to was that Barb was in the car with him when they took him for the school and everything like that, when she wasn't.
No, she wasn't. That's right. She said she wasn't.
You know, and we've heard that for the horse's mouth.
That's
you
right.
know, we've heard it straight from Barb that she was not in that car, and that's what changed my mind about Barb when I started watching, man, because when I seen what was Brendan was going through, and I was like, where the bloody hell was his mother and everything like that. But then when it came to Wiegert's testimony, and he said that exact same thing in the court, the camera was on Barb, and her face and everything told 1,000 words, you know. She was like, no fucking way did you ask me to come in that fucking car with yous, you know what I mean? So that's when my mind started changing with Barb, and then reading it myself with this, it just cements it more, and the lies that comes out of that guy's mouth, and no wonder we all call him Wiegert, and people will see exactly why we call him Wiegert.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you know, again, a lot of this is for our newer people that have joined into, you know, this making a murder world, and, you know, trying to understand the complexity of, because there's, you know, even with that, with what you said, there's more to it, you know, with the family that we've talked a little bit about. And, you know, if time allowing, we're going to get into this DCI Report 62, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, but it gets more into...
Jack,
Yep.
Jack, if I could just say, just for those listeners, I'll read this little passage. It's from Eisenberg's anthropology case report. I quote, at 10:30 on 15th November 2005, I called Fassbender to inform him that I noted and documented the presence of internal beveling immediately adjacent to an incomplete semicircular defect of a burned cranial bone, left parietal fragment. Because of that finding, I recommended taking x-rays of all the cranial bone fragments. Hence, on the 15th of November, the lead investigator knew that the victim had been shot in the head.
That's right. And, you know, this second shot or discovery of the 2 bullet holes, I had it in my mind, and maybe I'm thinking wrong or was told wrong, and it's just stuck, that them saying, well, she was shot twice in the head. I thought that actually came out. I knew that they knew of one, but the second one was in January of 2007. But again, I could be remembering something wrong or was told something wrong, and it's just stuck with me. I just want to make sure I'm not passing out bad information.
Yeah, I mean, the factor is that, remember, Eisenberg would have got the box of bones, and she would have examined all the the bones in the box. 8318, I think it is.
Yeah.
And all the cranial bone fragment, all of them were in that box.
Right.
So she would have, when she tried to reconstruct the skull, she was only able to put about 2 or 3 pieces together, and she used nail polish, remember, to indicate which fragments went together. She would have noted very early on that there were 2 cranial bone fragments that displayed beveling. Right, one in the back of the skull and one on the left side near the temple. So they knew, the investigators knew of at least 2 gunshot wounds to the skull very early on.
I agree.
Way before they were questioning Brendan Dassey, before.
That's exactly what I was
I
thinking.
have a couple of comments. For me, when you're talking about this medical professional, I'm sorry, but it's just a joke, because this is the same woman that thought some time ago bird remains were the remains of a fetus, number one. Number two, we have a comment in here by Runs with Scissors, did RH, SB, SD, etc. have the same caliber gun?
They actually didn't prove that. They actually didn't prove which weapon and which bullet hit Teresa in the skull. And we know.
Or what caliber, right?
Correct, the caliber. They actually didn't work that out, and they knew. Well, they had item FL, right? And item FL is what will get Stephen and Brendan exonerated, right? But they didn't find the bullet that struck the victim in the skull, and it certainly wasn't item FL.
The hole was too big, isn't that right, Doc? If I remember my physics here.
They did. Well, the problem is this: they weren't able to get a complete circumference of the entrance wound because they only had partial skull fragments.
Yeah.
So hence they didn't determine the diameter. But hey, they could have easily done that, right? They could have got some skulls and fired some test bullets and have a look at the crane, the actual cylindrical defect, and they could have worked out what the caliber was. Maybe it was from a police gun and they didn't want that information out, so they didn't do any further investigations.
Right.
And did somebody come forward and say that Scott Tadich tried to sell somebody at his work a 22 or something like that, and it was supposed to belong to Bobby or something like that, or was that just a rumor?
Well, it was pretty heavily passed around early on. Yeah.
Scott Tadich denied it, but you know what's very interesting? The .22 caliber rifle that was present in Stephen Avery's bedroom. Guess who had the exact same rifle?
Bobby
Dassey did. The exact same rifle. Same one.
Glenfield, wasn't it? Glenfield Model 60 or something?
Glenfield Model 60, correct.
Yeah. That is interesting. But yes, that to answer your question, Alice, that went around really heavily back in 2016 about this alleged phone call this alleged selling of the rifle. But like Doc said, Scott denied it. So
yeah. Linda's checking convictions is saying, see, you have to look at this case away from the state's narrative and try and look at what they pushed aside because they didn't want to go away from Stephen. Yeah, exactly. Whatever didn't point in Stephen's direction, they didn't want to know anything about it.
Well, no, for a lot of we're concentrating right now on Brendan and this, and we should, and we've got to continue to do that. But the origination of, and I know Doc will agree, and probably many others, this all originated in 1985. It was a carry through, every bit of it. But you got to understand, people have to understand this lawsuit that Stephen had, and he did that because Puglatenslauer said, hey, no, there was no wrongdoing at the MTSO. So his only way to repair that or to get anything out of this wrongful conviction that he went through was to file a civil lawsuit. And from that civil lawsuit that put a target on Stephen, and everything else is collateral damage. They didn't give a damn about Brendan getting convicted. I mean, maybe privately they did, but never in any public format at all. They didn't care. They would have convicted all of them if that meant. I fully believe, even if it wasn't Teresa, I fully believe something was going to happen to derail those depositions. They wanted them stopped, and they wanted Avery back in jail. Anyway, I've digressed a little bit.
And they had days to do it in. They had days to stop it.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
They were getting desperate.
Well, I think that the death of Teresa, that incident, just basically landed in their lap, and it was used to their full benefit. But anyway, let's.
TTM Fangirl says, I didn't know Bobby had the exact same rifle. Wowzer. That's why I love foul play.
He did. He had the exact same rifle, Glenfield Model 60.
You always learn something new. So
And yes,
And didn't all 4 boys have the same rifle? Weren't they giving them gifts as like a Christmas present from their dad or something? All 4 of them, Brian, Blaine, even though Brendan didn't use one, didn't he also have one too? I thought that's what I remember.
yeah, that I don't know that, Mystic Jinx, but I know that when they were questioning during the trial, it came out that Bobby had the exact same rifle, and not only that, there's a video. Remember when they did the walkthrough?
Yep.
And you can see the rifle with the scope hanging on the wall, as well as the computer in the bedroom.
That's right. I remember that. Okay.
Well, they pulled like what most people would consider an arsenal out of those houses because they're all hunters. So
Sure. I mean, it's
they
not
had
that
a lot of
unusual, but
guns. They
I mean,
had a lot of guns.
to have the
How many
exact same
people-
gun.
How many people, even in that state, do you think had such a rifle? I bet it would be too many for you to even try to keep track of.
Well, I think it was a pretty common gun, actually, Sammy. I think you said it.
It's yeah, you're right. It's one of the most popular weapons out there, so it's no big deal. But the important point to note is that item FL was linked to the barrel of the rifle in Stephen Avery's bedroom, right? Newhouse. There's no doubt it left landing in
Before
grooves.
or after they found it?
Well, the Mystic Jinx, I don't know that. All I'm saying is that the 2 items were linked together. That doesn't prove that Stephen Avery fired the rifle.
Agreed.
And Roland Johnson, who owned the rifle, admitted he had fired at least 3,000 rounds all over the salvage yard, including near and in the garage.
That's right.
Problem solved.
Burn barrels, gophers.
I just want to point out that the ballistics, the first ballistics that Newhouse did, if you actually look at the Calumet County report, they knew about it prior to going to Brendan on the 27th, that these shells, at least, they had picked up in November, matched the gun that was on the wall. So that report actually is written February 27th, but it is not in order in the CASO. You don't actually see it until after Brendan's March 1st and the 27th interrogations. And
That's
it's
right.
somewhere in between like a 3/14 and a 3/15 date. So it's kind of like out of place in a way, which I always thought was odd.
Well, that fits right into their MO, though, making things out of order to make it, again, it complicates the case. So that's not.
Well, that's what their tie-in was, Jack 61. Their tie-in was, how in the hell can we corroborate any of Brendan's statements? And hence, item FL was that piece of evidence that they were looking for. The problem is that item FL now is extremely problematic for the state.
Oh my God.
The game changer.
Yeah.
The game changer.
The game changer. Yep.
I call it the key changer because it's going to open the door to the prison. That's what it's going to do.
Yep, and hopefully a few Brady's along the way, because there were several. Okay, so let's move on with we're starting here on page 53. I can't remember what does this get into. Yeah, okay. So we're continuing on with the recross question. Now, yesterday when we ended, counsel asked you about the absence of DNA and fingerprints that connect the defendant to the crime. Do you recall that? Answer, I do. Question, all right. Now, although there is no DNA profile of the defendant or his fingerprints, is there scientific evidence that connects him to the crime in your opinion? Answer, absolutely. Question, let's take this in 2 parts. After receiving the statement that we witnessed yesterday, what did you do? Answer, after receiving the statement, which you guys all saw yesterday on March 1st, we applied and obtained a search warrant, which was signed by a judge. We entered that garage and did a full search of that garage. Now remember, during the time on March 1st that they were doing this coercion session with Brendan, they were also on the phone with Kratz and the rest about writing the search warrant. And at one point, he's telling them to stop, stop, stop. Don't sign. Don't go in yet, because they were trying to elicit even more information. Just wanted to add that in there. This is while they're coercing Brendan. Starting on line 4. And as you already know, we found 2 bullet fragments in that garage. Number 1 bullet fragment that we found underneath that air compressor, which you all saw. We retrieved that and we sent it to the lab, and we found Teresa Halbach's DNA on that bullet that we discovered after Mr. Dassey told us that she was shot in the garage. After you convinced her she was shot in the garage, you mean, coerced him to say. That very bullet was analyzed by the weapons specialist, which you heard talk here. That bullet came from a .22 caliber hanging in the Stephen Avery's bedroom, which Brendan told us. Brendan told us that where we'd found that .22, and that's where we found it. To the exclusion of all other guns, that's where the bullet came from. That's the information that Mr. Dassey told us during this interview that we did not know. Question, all right. And while you were interviewing him, did you have a fair command of the forensic evidence that you knew and that existed prior to this statement? Answer, yes, sir. Question, all right. And in terms of the evidence that was known to you at the time of the interview, what scientific evidence do you believe corroborates many of the details he provided? Just to answer, well, there's a lot of it. I'll give you a few examples. This is a kicker here. The bleach, for example, corroborates what he says about cleaning up in the garage. We found the bleach bottle where he says we'd found the bleach bottle. The bleach bottle's empty. And the rake and the shovel, which he says they took out of the garage to help and tend the fire. Where do we find the rake and the shovel? Out by the fire. His pants. He's the one who tells us that there's bleach stains on his pants from cleaning up blood in the garage. He turns over the pants. You saw for yourself, that's on his pants. He indicated that there were restraints used. He's the one who told us that, about the handcuffs. We found handcuffs. He tells us that they put Teresa, after they kill her, in the back of her own vehicle. We find Teresa's DNA, blood, in the back of that vehicle. He tells us that Steve's got a cut on his finger. We find some Steven's blood in Teresa's truck. Just a few examples. Comments before I read the recross examination by Edelston?
They clean all this evidence up that he has bleach on his pants, but yet all those shells, what did they do? Clean around the shells and then place the shells back on the floor because they found, 10 or 11 shells in the beginning?
Yep, must have, because they would have had, in my opinion, they would have had blood on them. They would have had to.
Along with the dust.
And dust.
Yeah, but the ultimate question is this: how did those boneheads miss those 2 bullet fragments all the other times that they searched the garage, right? Which goes to show that, item FK was in the crack of the cement. They missed that one. But the item FK, they actually couldn't tie to anything, any weapon, because it was very badly mangled and it had no DNA on it. So how did they miss item FL underneath the green compressor when there are photographs, in situ photographs, that show the green compressor and underneath the green compressor, and there are no bullets there?
Now, Dr. Silkman, FK sure could have had her DNA on it. Had it matched the gun, they might have put it on that one.
Well, put it this way. I want to hear what Culhane and any of those bloody idiot attorneys are going to say now about item FL, because Ken Kratz, and we're going to talk about this in the chapter that in the chapters that we're reading, he had to write a brand new chapter just on item FL and what Dr. Palanik found, because he now had to backtrack. And that spineless bastard now was saying, I never said item FL struck bone. I never said item FL killed Teresa Halbach. Isn't that incredible? He used item FL during the trial to imply that it was the bullet and the cause of death. All of a sudden, he has now walked away from it because he knows
recall any other
nothing.
shots being talked about in trial other than the 2 into the head.
Correct. And remember, they found no evidence of any bullet transiting the skull because they don't have an outshoot. They've only got 2 cranial bone fragments that demonstrate an in shot. They haven't actually proved that a bullet transited the skull. And Dahan, I think it was. No, who was the guy?
Palaniuk.
The guy that actually did the gunshot simulations, shooting into bovine scapulas.
Oh, I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
I know
he proved that the a .22 caliber bullet won't transit the skull. Hasn't got enough energy, right?
Hey, Silkman, I learned that a 22 wouldn't go through a skull in Goodfellas.
There you go. There you go. Correct. But the important point is this, Jack 61, is that the state can't change their tune now.
Nope.
The state we've got the murder weapon, we've got the person who fired it, and we've got the bullet. They're stuck. Now nothing.
They're stuck with it.
Nothing.
That's right.
Correct.
They're stuck with that. So, well, anyway, let's just keep in mind everything you said there, but keep in mind what Wiegert says now ties Brendan to this crime. So this is the recross of Meddleston. Question. So Stephen Avery had told Brendan Dassey when Brendan got over there, I shot Teresa in the garage. You need to help clean it up. That's that's certainly a possibility, isn't it? Answer. Are you saying that's all he told him? Question. No, I'm just asking you. You said that in order to scientifically connect the defendant, you pointed to the bullet fragment with Teresa's DNA, right? Answer. That is correct, yes. Question. I'm not going to argue with you. We know it has her DNA. Answer. Yes. Question. Right? And that came from the gun, right? Answer. Yes. You don't know how many times he was in that garage before the 31st, do you? Answer. How many times Brendan was in the garage? Answer. Or question. Right. Answer. No, I don't. Question. You don't know how many times he sat around watching Steve burn things in that pit, do you? Answer. No. Question. You don't know if he ever saw that rake and shovel that's been paraded around up here before the 31st, do you? Answer. No. He said he got them out of the garage. Question. So he could have been pre-existing knowledge of that. I had pre-existing knowledge of that rake and shovel, right? Answer. Sure, he could have. Question. He could have had pre-existing knowledge about that gun hanging up there in the bedroom, couldn't he? Answer. I'm assuming he could have. All right. This all occurred now October 31, right? Answer. Yes. Question. You said he told you that he helped Steve clean up this mess, right? In the garage. Answer. He said he helped clean up, do a lot of things. One of the things he was help. Question. Listen. Answer. Clean up the garage. Yes. Question. Okay. And he talked about using bleach, right? Answer. Yes. So in fact, that there's a bleach bottle that is discovered some 4 months later in Stephen's trailer. You're telling this jury is scientific evidence to corroborate what he said. My God. Answer. I'm telling you to put it all together along with this gas cap. Question. Let me put it together. Answer. Absolutely. Question. Do you just answer my questions? Answer. Yes, I am. Question. That bleach bottle wasn't scientifically analyzed to determine whether it had Brendan's DNA on it, was it? Answer. No. Question. It wasn't scientifically analyzed to determine whether it had his fingerprints on it, was it? Get this. Answer. Wouldn't expect it to. Question. You don't know how long that thing had been sitting there, do you? Answer. I don't. Question. You told Mr. Fallon that you had a pretty fair command of this forensic evidence by the time you conducted this interview, right? Answer. I knew the majority of it. Question. All right. When did you, let me just ask you this way. Did I understand that you say that it was February 27th was the first time that you had any knowledge about a gunshot wound being an issue in this case? Answer. I can tell you that there was a report written by somebody at the crime lab on the 27th about a suspect gunshot wound, and we received it on the 28th. There may have been conversations with, for example, Leslie Eisenberg, whom you saw testify about the skull pieces earlier than that. I didn't question. Excuse me. What was that about the earlier than the 27th from Eisenberg? Answer. I said that there may have been discussions that she may have found one piece of skull earlier than that. Question. Let me ask you this. Answer, but I don't know. Question. Well, you do have a recollection of being told as early as November 15th of 2005 that your lead co-investigator, Agent Fassbender, that he got information from Eisenberg that there was a clear evidence of a gunshot wound. Answer. Do I have an independent recollection of that? No. But I believe that would be true that, question, all right. Answer, I don't know that she could say it was a clear wound at that time. She had suspect that there was a weapon at one time. Question, yeah. Answer, that's probably true. Question, all right. See how he danced all the way around that? Question, all right. So it certainly wasn't a revelation from Brendan there was an issue of a gunshot wound, correct? Answer, one gunshot wound. Question, you already knew of this going into the interview. Answer, one gunshot wound. Yes, I said that, yes. Question, you also indicated in response to counsel's questions about this corroborating what he said to you from a scientific standpoint that he told you Brendan had Stephen had cut a finger and you found some blood, right? Answer, true. Question, if there were tending a fire and he saw Steve had cut a finger, does that surprise you? Answer, he even said Stephen went in and got a Band-Aid to put on it when he was questioned. So what? If he sees a cut finger and he says he got a Band-Aid, how is that scientific? Answer, it's knowledge that he would have known, and answer, it's not. Answer, puts him there. Okay, that's all. I think that's pretty much all I've got. But as you know, to me, it's just him being an absolute dick about, he's answering this question saying, oh, I only knew about the woman. I'm sure they knew about two. I just know it in my brain that he knew that there was a second gunshot wound in the skull, and this bleach thing. Oh my God, I cannot believe he said that. But he's trying to sell a story, as everyone said. So, questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, to even consider that, but nobody knows how long that bleach bottle had been sitting there. You know what I mean? That bleach bottle could have been sitting there for 2 days. It could have been there for 2 weeks. It could have been there for 2 months.
Even 2 years. Even 2 years.
Exactly, Jack. Yeah, exactly. But yet they emphasise, because Brendan had a bit of bleach on his bloody trousers, that this bleach bottle was what they used to clean it up. It drives me nuts. And I was slowly coming down again, and I'm bloody boiling again now.
Yeah, it was maddening going through his testimony and listening to answers that, he was trying to completely dance around so much stuff because, he didn't want to get away from the story that, Brendan's involved. He knows all about. He was, I'm sure, well instructed and well coached. Prior to that, it was maddening though going through the basically 2.5 days of listening to him talking. I think that Elsie did a pretty good job in some areas, but in some areas he let him get away with too much, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, definitely. There was quite a few times where Edelstein could have pushed that wee bit more, and he just didn't. Yeah. But then I can understand in a way his point because of the because of the short, sharp answers and blunt answers that Wiegert was giving him. He knew in a way that it didn't matter how much he pushed on a certain thing. He was just going to get the same thing. Oh, I'm not surprised, and surprisingly this, and surprisingly that, and So when he said, "Oh, right, I'm not going to argue with you," because he knew he was just going to get the same sort of answers, but I completely agree. He should have pushed more on certain things because the state certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a danger for any attorney, even a prosecutor, but probably even a defense attorney in this kind of trial. If they cross too far of a line, then it makes them look like really bad, and I'm sure he was trying to avoid that while still maintaining control of the this cross examination. But I don't know. I just feel like there should have been more done to force some issues and force him to answer. Actually, there was if you remember, I didn't include it in anything that I read, but he did ask the judge to tell him to answer the question. I can't remember what part that's in, but there was one time he did that. And there were a couple of times that, Fallon wanted something, stricken or objection or whatever, and Fox wouldn't allow it. So, but I still think he should have done more. Anyway.
Yeah, he should have, because the things that he was objecting to or striking off shouldn't have been,
Right.
In my opinion, anyway, they shouldn't have been. Like, if Fallon was objecting to something, and it was something ridiculous and stupid, I can't even pinpoint what it was, or whether it was day 5 or day 6, but there was something that Fallon objected to, and I think it was Edelstein, he was on a roll, he was kind of baiting him to get him to say the answers, and then Fallon jumped in and went, objection.
Well, he wanted to interrupt his flow. That's exactly why he did it.
Yeah, exactly. And the judge agreed with it when I think he shouldn't have agreed with it.
Yeah.
When it came to Edelstein or anything like that objecting, I think he didn't let them get away with as much as what he did Fallon.
No, absolutely not. I agree. Okay.
I just want to say that Judge Fox is from Chilton. Like, that's where he grew up, and that's the Calumet County area. So he grew up in Calumet County area, but was a judge in Manitowoc, and he's the judge that heard Brendan's case. So
interesting.
All these little intertwined people in the counties.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and it was, who did he hunt with? He hunted with somebody that was connected. I can't remember now, but there was another connection. Gosh, you said his name and being connected in there. There was somebody connected to
on the same hunting club as Bobby Fox.
It seemed like you're right.
And before he was a judge, he was a lawyer that I think was I'm not 100% sure, but he might have been Scott Tadich's lawyer.
Defense attorney.
Yes.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a hunting club picture. Yeah.
Okay, before we move forward, now we're at 1 hour and 47 minutes, so this next part is a DCI. If there's nothing else about the trial testimony, we covered that pretty good.
Can I just make one point, right?
Please.
What did King Kratz say right at his opening statement, right, during the Brendan Dassey trial? He said two things. Was he there and did he help? Right? Was he there and did he help? And Brendan Dassey admitted being over with his uncle Stephen Avery and helping his uncle in the garage. He never denied that. The only thing that's missing from the picture is Teresa Hallbach.
That's right.
So all this evidence saying, well, Brendan was there. Well, Brendan said that he was there. Well, Brendan did help clean the garage. Well, Brendan actually did say he helped clean the garage. So he's not lying. He's not making up a story. The only thing that's missing from the entire narrative is the victim. She was never there, right? And remember, what did Brendan say in a phone call to his mum? Mum, how long am I going to go to jail for? For what, son? For helping my uncle clean the garage. He thought he was going to prison for helping to clean the garage.
Yeah.
Right? That's how insane it got.
He absolutely had no idea. No idea. Well, that's another thing that really irritates me about these two cases, and the complications that arise from it is there being two trials. Number one, they should have never prosecuted Brendan, but the two different scenarios surrounding one person's death, I don't know how a state authority can get away with that. I don't understand it. I just think that there should be some statute to say the crime had to have happened. If you're going to go after and try to convict multiple people for the same murder, shouldn't everything kind of line up? I mean, we have a different location of death, a different way of death. You
mean, shouldn't it be the same murder?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just I don't know.
All I can say is they got pats on the back from their fellow ass clowns for pulling off a lie, not for convicting a true murderer.
Agreed.
In both cases, they're ass clowns. Their only concern was to make sure they pulled this off at any cost.
Agreed. I actually spent some time looking, and of course, I don't have access to Westlaw or anything like that where I can go in and plug in a few words to do a search. But I actually did a multi-day search trying to find if there was some kind of federal or even a state statute to prevent prosecutors from doing exactly what we just talked about. But I was never able to find one. But I just don't see how they can be illegal. I just don't.
Well, Jack 61, in the West Memphis 3 trial, one of the defendants had a separate trial.
Yep.
He's Miss Kelly. He's the one that came up with the story that all three of them were involved in murdering those 3 boys. So his trial was separate, and the other 2 boys, they were tried together, right? What Ken Kratz wanted to do, he was a crafty bastard. What Ken Kratz wanted to do was to get Brendan to have a signed confession on a piece of paper, basically detailing exactly what they both did. Write it down on a piece of paper. He didn't want to go through the forensic route.
Oh, no.
And so what they wanted to do was for Brendan to sign a confession, Brendan to do a plea deal, and then that way Brendan could appear as a witness in Stephen Avery's trial.
Yep.
All they had to say was, Judge, here is a confession, a signed confession, saying that Brendan Dassey and his uncle did A, B, C, D to the victim. Case over. We've got a plea deal. We're given 15 years. Take it as you will. That's exactly what Ken Kratz wanted to do with Kaczynski and O'Kelly. That fell through, which meant that he couldn't put Brendan on the stand during Stephen Avery's trial due to self-incrimination.
That's right.
So they had to do 2 separate trials and 2 different murder scenarios on the same victim. Correct.
Yeah, that May 13th interview, Kratz even admitted that he wanted a clean confession. That's why he allowed it. I still think he should have lost his bar card by allowing Brendan to go into that interrogation without his lawyer, because he had a lawyer. If it was that important, he could have waited till the following week. But that's not what they wanted. To me, that was an entire setup. That's just the way I see it. Maybe I'm wrong in looking at it that way, but everything that led up to that with what O'Kelly and Kaczynski set up, O'Kelly says, well, I need to be alone with Brendan. He'll bond with me. I'll be his source of relief. You don't need to be there, basically. Well, it just so happens that I'm on drills next weekend. You're in charge. You'll be the defense in charge. But he's not a lawyer at all. I just thought that the entire thing was a complete setup. That's just the way because of the collusion factor that we know about with the email chains and all the contact that Kaczynski and O'Kelly had with not only the defense investigators, the state investigators, but with the prosecutor as well. They're emailing him about everything. Hey, you need to get a search warrant for X, Y, and Z, but leave my damn name out of it because you know, I just the whole thing just stinks to high heaven. I think they colluded to do it, and that May 13th thing, like
Well,
you said, they wanted that clean confession.
That's correct. But the problem was that Brendan started to recant.
Oh yeah,
And what did Fassbender say to Brendan? Why are we down here? You're wasting our time. So Brendan was changing his story. So hence that part of the testimony was completely useless. Ken Kratz knew that he couldn't put Brendan on the stand, because you could imagine calling up Kayla and Brendan and both of them recanting, saying, yeah, we made it all up. My uncle never did any of that. Party over, guys. Party over.
That's right. That's right. I just told the investigators what they wanted to hear. Can you imagine, you know, Buting and Strang being able to, you know, talk to Brendan and say, look, you know, when you testify, you just need to get up there and tell them what they did. And you just said back to them what they wanted because you thought it was okay. You know, it would have blown the case up. Oh my God. Anyway.
Yeah, but in my opinion, Jack, Kratz should have lost his license as soon as he done that March 1st press conference. His license should have been gone.
I agree. You know, that was another thing. Well, it was actually March 2nd, but I agree because they're not supposed to do it, number one. But, you know, that I have to know in my mind that, or think in my mind anyway, that Fallon knew what he was going to do and used him. They just used him to do it. And, you know, if it fell out, I don't think Fallon would have cared. I mean, he might have privately been, you know, said, you know, sorry, guy. But publicly,
I was going to say, Jack 61, they had no choice. They had to do it. And the reason why they had to do it is because Stephen's alibi was his nephew, Brendan Dassey.
That's right.
So the thing is, they had to nail both of them. They couldn't let one go and prosecute the other. They had to nail both of them. And that's why Fassbender and Wiegert had to coerce Brendan Dassey to change his story, change the narrative. So both of them ended up being charged for the murder of Teresa Halbach. You can't let one go because the two were together, right? So it wouldn't look good. How are you going to explain everything if Brendan goes, well, look, my uncle called me over. We collected a few items from around the junkyard. We started a bit of a fire. We burnt some of them. My mother called me to come home. I went home. I went to bed. Right? How were they then going to account for all the rape, the holding Teresa against her will, the shooting, all of that? They couldn't. They had no narrative.
That's
so
right.
Paul Brendan walked into the bear trap. They had to keep him there, right? Because if they let him go, the whole case will collapse. There'll be nothing but circumstantial evidence against Stephen.
That's right. That's exactly right. I don't know. I'm just appalled at, again, after all these years and still looking at this, you know, stuff pretty much every day in one aspect or another, you know, the new things that we have, you know, this next section I don't know that I'm going to start it because this next section is, I've got it linked in the description. It's DCI Report 62. And, you know, if you guys want me to do it, I mean, we're right at 2 hours now. I can go into it if you want, or I can make this make it a separate broadcast. But it raises questions. I don't know that we'll ever get satisfactory answers, but you know, they're questions nonetheless. So I want to let you guys decide. We're at 2 hours, and I'd actually have the Anjanette Levy Brendan interview that I was actually going to close the podcast today with the open mic. I wasn't really going to have really any, unless you just guys wanted to have any conversations afterwards. I just wanted it played again so everybody would hear Brendan's voice and hear what he had to say. It never got aired. We broadcast it one time in another open mic, but you know, it's an important thing to me that for whatever reason they didn't broadcast it. I think it came back, you know, somebody had asked her why didn't it get broadcast? And it was said, oh, well, because of his age. Well, they knew he was a minor when they interviewed him. Come on. But I think it really is because he wouldn't agree with, and he didn't give what they wanted to broadcast, given everything else they've been saying to the public. He went completely against it. It would have been bad. They should have broadcast it, but they didn't. But I'll let you guys decide. Because this next one, DCI Report 62 is basically 13 pages long, but there are many sections in it that are going to they're going to take some time, and I don't want to keep everybody here all night. So you guys want to just make that one a standalone? Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, Linda's
Yes.
saying do it next time so that she can put her 20 cents in.
Because she's
Yeah.
got to go. They're grilling.
Yeah, I think she's gonna have probably a couple of dollars worth to save with this DCI Report 62. There's a lot of things in it that we should talk about. It's new to me. Some of it is new. I've probably heard some of it in times past, but it's really a detailed account of. It's an interview of Barb, and there's a detailed account of what they made her say, or wanted her to say in detail. So I think we'll save that until next time. So I think what I'll do is before I play this and we go, does anyone have anything they want to anything coming up, add in that they want to get out there, plug, whatever? I'm good with that. Anything?
I'm new to YouTube, so go subscribe.
That's right. Get over to Jinx's channel and watch her videos and give her some subs. Give her some love, guys, gals. Alice, BB?
I'd just like to thank everybody in chat for coming along. Join our Discord, like, share and subscribe the channel. Any questions you have, put in the comments. Please don't be afraid to ask us any questions, no matter how silly you think it is. That's what we're here for.
Excellent. Anything else? Anybody else got something they want to?
I'm good.
Okay. Dr. Silkman,
Take us out.
we're good to go. All right, I'm going to play this. It's about 15 minutes. Hopefully, everybody can stick around and listen to it, and then we're going to end the podcast for the day. I want to thank everyone for coming. Everybody here in Discord, the great comments and conversation, keeping up the good fight, advocating to get Brendan and Stephen out. And continue to dig for information. That's another part. These FOIAs and things that really give us more insight to what happened. We want the truth. We want all of it on the table. Anybody that tells you that they're a truther and they don't want the entire truth out, they're not a real truther, because no matter where the evidence leads, that's where we're going. I don't know about everybody else, but that's where foul play is going. I've talked to enough people and know that. So, okay, with that said, thanks everybody for coming along and listening and being a part. All right, here we go. Anyone that's got YouTube muted, you'll have to unmute.
This is CBS 5. It's Anjanette. Hello?
Hello, this is a collect call from
Brandon.
an inmate at the Sheboygan County Jail. To accept charges, press 0. To refuse charges, press 1. To prevent calls from this facility, press 6. For a rate quote, press 7. Hello, this is a collect call from
Brandon.
This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using Evercom.
Oh?
Brandon, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. This is Anjanette. How are you?
Good.
Good. Okay, well, I'm going to put you on hold for just a second, okay? I'm going to transfer you into another room. Is that all right?
Okay.
Okay, if we get disconnected, will you call back?
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment. Yeah. I promise. Okay, bye. Brendan, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi. We've never met or anything. My name's Anjanette, as I was saying.
Yeah.
I work at Channel 5. I'm a TV news reporter. I just want to be clear with you. I want to ask your permission to record our conversation. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are granting me permission to record this conversation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I've started the tape, and I'm going to ask you one more time. Brendan, do I have your permission to record this conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Brendan, how are you doing?
Well, not really bad, but I can't see none of my friends.
Do you see your mom?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Brendan, I was just wondering, your mom was saying you want your side of the story told with all of this. I know you got arrested on March 1st, and the police said that you told them, you know what the police said, that they said that you and you told them that you and your uncle killed and raped Teresa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is your side of that story? What do you have to say about that? You said you want your side of the story told.
Well, my story is I came home from school at 3:45, started walking down the road, and me and Blaine were talking about who would get the phone first to call our friends, you know. And then we went in the house, Blaine, he called his friend first, and while he was talking to his friend, I was playing PlayStation 2, and I waited for a little bit, and then at 5 o'clock or about that, my mom came home and I talked to her, and she said she had to leave to go to the hospital with Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I watched TV until about 6 o'clock and got a phone call from Blaine's boss, Mike Cornelli, and told him that Blaine was going trick-or-treating with his friend. And after that, I watched TV until 7, and Steven called, and he asked me if I wanted to come over to the bonfire, so I told him I would, and I did, and then he told me that I was gonna help him clean up the yard, so we did, and we picked up fan seat, wood, and some tires for the fire, and we picked that stuff up, and then we brought it to the fire, then we threw some of it on, and then we went into the garage, and there was a puddle on the floor of some reddish black stuff, but I didn't know what it was from, but it was like, I don't know, it was like probably 5 feet by 5 feet puddle or something, and so I cleaned that up with some folded rags, and we threw the stuff in the fire after that, and then we sat there watching the fire, and then we threw some of the stuff on, and my mom came home at 9. Then she went into the house and called Steven on his cell phone to tell him that I was supposed to be home at 10 o'clock, and that if I had a sweater on. And so we waited for the fire to go down, and then he told me to go home to get some sleep for school tomorrow, the next day. And after that, I talked to my mom a little bit, then went to bed.
Well, you said you were hanging out in the house with your brothers?
Yeah.
Which ones were those? I know you have 3 brothers.
Well, Blaine was the only one there.
Oh, okay. Oh, because you guys came home from school.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it said in some papers they had in court.
Yeah.
So you said you guys were hanging out in the house watching playing Game Boys and watching TV?
Yeah.
What were you guys watching on TV?
Some music videos.
Oh, okay. Like what station is that?
Channel 333.
Oh, okay. Like, I don't know, VH1 or something?
MTV.
Oh, MTV. Oh, yeah, VH1's probably like, for somebody more my age, probably like a little older music and stuff like that. Okay. Well, and you said you didn't even go over until Steven called you?
Yeah.
And that was 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Well, where do you think the cops are getting all this stuff about you getting off the bus and getting the mail and stuff?
I don't know.
No?
But I didn't do that because I never get the mail, and how can I ride a bike because I don't got one? Because mine's junk because my gear gauge is busted.
And you didn't go over to Steven's house at all after school?
No.
Well, where do you, when the cops were talking to you, because we haven't seen that videotape, they said that you are the one that said, you saw Teresa's car in the garage and the fire pit going, there was a big fire in there and everything.
Well, the fire was started before I got there.
But when you got home from school, you didn't see the fire?
No.
And you didn't see Teresa's car in the garage?
No.
So how did this all go down that they said you said all this?
Well, they, said some stuff, and they asked me if it happened or not. But I would say, sometimes I would say no, then they would say I was lying or something.
But that one cop, he was up there testifying, he said you provided all the detail.
Not really.
Well, what is that? What do you mean, not really?
Well, some of the stuff I gave, but some of the other stuff wasn't true.
Oh, well, what did you give them?
Well, when they asked me what I did all over there, and I told them that I was just over to the bonfire the first interview, and they said that the next day, the time that they arrested me, that they knew all the stuff that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did they said that you said that Stephen answered the door all sweaty and kind of half naked, and that he took you down the hall and Teresa was, on the bed with shackles and handcuffs. You didn't say that?
No.
Where did they get that you said that?
I don't know.
Do you think if I went to the cops, Brendan, and said, hey, we need to do a story on this, and, why don't you let us watch the tape? We won't put it on TV or anything, but maybe we could just view it. You wouldn't be saying that? You wouldn't be saying you saw Teresa shackled and handcuffed to the bed?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
And you didn't have sex with Teresa? They said that you had sex with her?
No.
And that she was, screaming for help and, saying Brendan, well, I guess she didn't know your name, but she was saying, you can stop this, crying, you can stop this, you can stop this.
Yeah.
And that she was begging you to save her.
Well, I know, I never seen her in my life besides that one day when she was on the news, when she was missing. So my mom called that one day and told me to turn on the news and watch it because she was a little late.
Because she was what?
She was a little late she was coming home from work.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me to turn it on before she got there to see what was on.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you feel like when these cops were talking to you that they were mean to you?
They yell at me sometimes.
They yelled at you?
Yeah.
Which one of them yelled at you?
I can't remember, but the one was up north when they interviewed in November.
Mm-hmm.
One of them swore at me.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
don't remember his name?
No.
Okay. But the guys that interviewed you, when they said that you told them all this stuff,
Yeah.
there's like a tall guy and like a short guy,
Yeah.
I think. He's got kind of balding.
Yeah.
Which one of them yelled at you?
Mark, I think.
Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. And the judge, what did you think about all that stuff the judge said? The judge said he thought they, were nice to you and everything.
I don't know, maybe he's lying or something.
The judge?
Yeah.
He said he watched the tape and everything.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
He said he saw it, that you willingly said that, you participated. And I'm not trying to pressure you, I'm just asking you because, that's what we do.
Yeah.
But he said that you willingly said, I raped Teresa, I slit her throat, that Stephen told you to slit her throat, and but Teresa didn't die yet,
No.
and that then Stephen strangled her, and he had blood all over his hands. That's what it says in the criminal complaint.
No.
That's not true?
No. Because I can't look at blood, because if I do, I have like a blackout or a faint. I faint.
Mm-hmm. Did you know that I talked to Stephen a while back on the phone?
Not, I don't recall.
He said that he loves you all, his nephews.
Yeah.
I mean, you love Stephen?
Yeah.
Like, he's probably, you guys are probably close.
Yeah.
I mean, he said he would hang out with you guys, like his nephews is what he said. He would hang out with you guys all the time.
Yeah, he would bring me places. Like, he would take me out to eat, and he said that if I would help him with this, he was fixing cars,
Mm-hmm.
He said if I would help him, he would, later on, he would help me find the car.
Well, what all kind of stuff did you do together?
Well, we would go up north riding, like, jeeps and that around, and go fishing, and have fires and go swimming.
Did you guys hang out outside, or not outside, but when you come home from school and stuff, did you guys ever hang out?
Not usually, because he works until 5.
But that day he said he left work early.
Yeah.
Because he said, like, he told me he was, like, hanging out at his house all day.
Yeah.
You didn't see him when you came home?
No.
And you said you never saw Teresa before?
No.
I was talking to your attorney yesterday, and he just briefly mentioned that there had been some discussions back and forth, and then I guess he told another station that, there's something about you pleading guilty, and maybe testifying, I guess, against Stephen. What do you think of that?
Well, when they interviewed, I was a little nervous, and because I'm shy a little bit, and that, and I don't know.
I mean, but do you understand what I'm saying about you pleading guilty?
Yeah.
That they want you to say you did it.
Well, at first I thought that they were, like, trying to get Stephen for something he didn't do again. And after I heard that they had evidence on him, I lost confidence in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think Stephen did this?
You have 1 minute left.
Not really.
Brendan, they were saying they have some evidence that corroborates your version of events, that you took part in this with your uncle.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I don't know, maybe they're planting it or something.
They're planting evidence against you?
Yeah.
But if I were to watch that tape, Brendan, would I see you saying that you raped Teresa?
I don't recall.
You don't remember saying you raped Teresa?
No.
And that you slit her throat?
No.
And that Stephen told you did a good job after you raped her?
No.
Stephen never told you did a good job?
No.
So what do you think of all this?
That it's bullcrap.
You never saw Teresa naked on that bed?
No.
Thank you for using Evercom.
Oh.
This has been a Foul Play production.